This story might sound fake, but I swear it's true. Last year in April, I, 14F, had my first sleepover at my house with 3 of my friends. There was F, 16F, L, 14F, and Z, 12M. It started like any other sleepover, playing games, taking the bus to Taco Bell for dinner, buying snacks, and watching TV. Everything was normal, until around midnight. That's when we decided to sneak out of my house through the back door and head to the park that's about 5 minutes away. We had fun there for about 20 minutes, taking pictures and joking around, but then we made the decision to go to the haunted woods nearby. It was a place we usually hung out during the day, but F had told us some creepy stories about the place. F is a medium. She can see and talk to spirits, and she'd been telling me about the ghost of a man who supposedly killed his daughter in those woods about 10 years ago. She also claimed that she had let the little girl's spirit attach to her. I've always been a bit skeptical, but F's connection with spirits is undeniable. So, with that in mind, we headed to the woods. It took us about 6 minutes to get there, and when we arrived, we decided to play a game of hide and seek. We split into pairs, me and L and F and Z. L and I wandered off to find a hiding spot while F and Z counted. As we walked deeper into the woods, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. It felt like eyes were following us from the trees. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe it was just my imagination. But as we found a spot behind a bench with a large bush behind it, the feeling intensified. I told myself it was probably my older brother, who had passed away when he was 17, but I still thought of him watching over me, just making sure we were safe. The game started at 1 a.m. F and Z began looking for us, and it wasn't long before things started getting weird. We started hearing voices, muffled and distant like people talking, but there was no one around. Then there were strange movements in the bushes and the sound of footsteps nearby. I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just teenagers out for a late-night walk. But then things took a darker turn. After another 5 minutes, I noticed 2 bright flashlights shining at us from a clearing in the woods. Thinking it was F and Z, I turned to L and said, "Looks like we've been found." But then my phone rang. It was F. "Meet us by the pond." "Now," she said, her voice trembling. "Why?" I asked, confused. "Just meet us by the pond," she replied, her tone filled with urgency. Something about the way she sounded scared me. I hung up and looked at L. We decided to run, our flashlights bobbing in the dark as we crossed the wide, green area toward the pond on the other side. I looked back to make sure L was behind me, and that's when I saw it. My flashlight illuminated something in the distance, crawling on all fours in a way that didn't seem right. It was tall, thin, and pale gray, like a skinwalker or something out of a nightmare. I didn't stop. I just kept running, faster this time, not daring to look back again. When we reached the pond, we shined our flashlights at F and Z to signal we were there. As soon as we reached them, F grabbed me and pulled me aside. "I felt it," she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. It wrapped its hands around my neck like it was choking me. And then I heard it. It said, "1 down, 3 to go. Mac is next." I froze. I knew exactly what she meant, the demon ghost man from the woods. The one she'd warned us about. We didn't stay long after that. We ran out of the woods, back to my house as fast as we could, and snuck back inside. We saged ourselves in the living room, where we'd be sleeping for the night, and tried to calm down. F asked me to help her remove her makeup upstairs, and that's when she told me what she had heard the demon say in the woods. The rest of the night is a blur. We were all too scared to sleep, but eventually we calmed down enough to rest. We told my older sister what had happened, but we all agreed not to talk about it much afterward. We never went back to those woods at night again. I've always been skeptical about paranormal stuff. I'd read these kinds of stories and dismiss them as overactive imaginations, but after what happened to my friend Robert and me, I'm not so sure anymore. It all started a couple of years ago during summer break. Robert and I had this routine: head to the park, hang out for a while, grab some snacks from the gas station, and then go back to my place to play Apex Legends. It was simple, fun, and kept us busy. One day we were planning to do the usual, but we realized we forgot to bring money for the snacks. No big deal though. We decided to head back to our houses to grab the cash and meet up at my place since we lived only a few neighborhoods apart. I was almost home when I saw Robert running toward me, completely out of breath. He was screaming, "Run, run. He's following me. Run." His face was pale with fear, and he was pointing behind him, urging me to run in the opposite direction. I turned around, but there was no one in sight. I told him to calm down and asked him what was going on. Between gasps, he explained that as he was walking to my house, he'd heard footsteps behind him. When he turned around, he saw it, a tall, completely black figure standing in the street. It looked like a man, but the strangest thing was that its face was completely featureless, just pure blackness like an empty void. Robert said they had a stare-off, with him trying to figure out what this thing wanted, but before he could make sense of it, the figure suddenly sprinted toward him. Robert, being pretty fast from his track days, immediately took off in the opposite direction. He could hear the footsteps pounding behind him, getting closer and closer. He kept glancing back, seeing the figure gaining on him, but he didn't slow down. He turned into my neighborhood and spotted me. That's when he started screaming, warning me to run too. I was completely confused and, to be honest, a little freaked out, but Robert's fear was genuine. He wasn't joking. He was visibly shaken, his body trembling from adrenaline. I kept asking him if this was some kind of prank, but every time he swore he wasn't lying. He had no clue what that thing was. To this day, we still talk about it, about what could have happened if that thing had caught up to him. Robert always insists he wasn't imagining it, that whatever it was real. And it's scary to think that, if he hadn't turned that corner when he did, it might have been a very different story. It started like any other night, part of my usual routine. I went to the woods at around midnight, a place I've been to countless times before. But after that encounter with the creature that ran at me, I was on edge. I decided it would be better to go earlier than usual, to be there before it got too late. I was texting a guy, sending voice messages to him. He was my safe place, the person I could talk to when everything felt off. I knew he would be asleep, so I just walked and talked into my phone, not thinking much of it. It was my way of feeling less alone. I reached the cow pasture, my usual spot, but I didn't even make it there. As I walked, I suddenly heard a sound. It was low, eerie, like a wounded dog or a fox. It sent a chill down my spine. I stopped dead in my tracks, my heart racing. But after a moment of hesitation, I told myself it was probably just some animal, and I started to move forward again. Then I heard it again. But this time it sounded different. It was human, yet not human at all. It was strange, unsettling, and it was getting closer. The sound of footsteps was mixed with something else. A low, guttural noise that sent me into a freeze. It was like something, or someone, was walking closer, but no one was there. I couldn't see anything, but the sound was unmistakable. I felt paralyzed, every muscle in my body telling me to run, but my feet wouldn't move. The strange human-like sound was still there, lingering, getting closer, then pulling back, almost like it was toying with me. My heart pounded in my chest, and I stayed frozen, trying to make sense of it. Then I heard it again, the wounded dog or fox. That same sound, but it wasn't just in the distance anymore. It was closer, mingling with the footsteps and the strange human noise. The weirdest part was that I couldn't see anything. No one, no animal, nothing in sight, yet I could hear it all so clearly. The day before, I had been in the woods with my friend. We were talking on the phone, and he had heard the same thing, a small dog barking. But when I looked around then, there was no dog. No sign of any animal. It freaked me out then, and it freaked me out even more now. I decided it was time to leave. I ran out of there as fast as I could, my ears filled with the sounds, feeling like something was right behind me. I glanced around constantly, checking over my shoulder, but there was nothing. Just the sounds following me as I ran. The woods felt darker, the shadows deeper, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I kept recording on my phone, sending voice messages, trying to stay calm. But the sounds didn't stop. It was like they were surrounding me. Now a bird call joined the mix, almost like a warning. The strange human noise and the wounded animal sound were still there, but quieter, like they were pulling away. Then suddenly they stopped. But I wasn't safe yet. The next day I went back to the field, and as soon as I stepped foot in it, I heard it again. This time it was a voice. It sounded like an old man, but there was no one around. No one in sight, just the voice. My heart skipped a beat, and I ran faster than I ever had before, my legs aching, but my mind screaming at me to get away. To this day, I have no idea what those sounds were. I don't know if it was something from the woods or something else. But it freaked me out so much that I haven't been back to that part of the woods since. I still go to a different forest, unsure if I'll ever return to the place where the sounds followed me. What do you think they were? Was it some animal, or was something else out there watching me? I live in a quiet, suburban neighborhood. One of those places where everyone's lawns are always neatly trimmed, and the neighbors wave politely when you pass. It's peaceful, almost to the point of being boring. But there's one neighbor who stands out, Mr. Henderson. He lives across the street from me. He's an older man, keeps to himself, and at first I didn't pay him much attention. He was just another fixture in the neighborhood. But then I started noticing something strange. His routine. It's incredibly precise. Every morning at exactly 7:15 a.m. he walks to his mailbox. Not a minute earlier, not a minute later. He retrieves his mail, nods to anyone who happens to be outside, and then goes back inside. Every day without fail. Then every evening at 9 p.m. sharp, he turns on his porch light. And at exactly 9:17 p.m. he turns it off. Not 9:16. Not 9:18. Always 9:17. The sheer rigidity of it all started to get to me. It's like he's operating on some kind of internal clock, or like he's being controlled by some unseen force. The routine is so deliberate, so unwavering, that it's almost like watching a machine. One afternoon, I was working from home, staring out the window as I usually do, when I happened to glance across the street. It was around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I saw Mr. Henderson standing perfectly still in his backyard, facing his house. At first, I thought he was just taking a break or maybe just thinking. But he didn't move, not for several minutes. He just stood there, unmoving, as if frozen in time. The air felt heavier as I watched him, like the world itself had stopped. Something about it felt so wrong. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, he turned and walked back inside. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. That night, as usual, I kept an eye on his routine. At 9 o'clock, his porch light flicked on. And then, at 9:17 it clicked off. But then, something strange happened. The light flickered, on, off, like someone was playing with a switch. I felt a sudden surge of adrenaline. Something was wrong. I grabbed my phone, told myself it was probably nothing, but the impulse to check on him was overwhelming. I went outside, crossing the street toward his house. As I got closer, I heard it, a faint rhythmic tapping. It was coming from inside his house. I approached his front door, heart pounding, the tapping growing louder. Peering through the window, what I saw froze me in place. Mr. Henderson was sitting in his living room, facing the window, just like I'd seen him so many times before. But something was different. His body was completely still, except for his right hand, which was tapping continuously on the armrest of his chair. Tap, tap, tap. His eyes were wide open, but they didn't look right. They were empty, lifeless, like someone who wasn't really there. A chill ran down my spine as I stepped back, the tapping still echoing in my ears. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to call the police, but what would I even say? My neighbor is acting weird? I didn't know how to explain it. I quickly turned and walked back home, my heart racing. Once inside, I locked the door, drew the blinds, and sat down in a daze. The tapping sound, those empty eyes, it was burned into my mind. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, as if nothing had happened, Mr. Henderson was outside at 7:15 a.m., retrieving his mail, right on schedule. He nodded at me just like he always does, as if everything was normal. And since then, his routine has been perfectly predictable. Every day, every minute, the same. And that's what's the most terrifying. The return to normalcy. If these stories send a chill down your spine, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more terrifying tales. You never know when the next horror story might be your own.